Hi, I'm Simone Booner, owner of Barefoot Medicine, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about why we do lab tests to measure the effects of stress on your body. So, stress is one of those strange things that creeps up on people, and we know that we're feeling stressed, but we don't really think beyond it as to what is going on in our body and what's happening to the hormone levels. So, for example, you may be feeling tired when you wake up, but that's not a good enough reason to go to your doctor. You might feel that your digestion's getting a bit sluggish, and again, it's not a reason to go to your doctor, but from a functional medicine perspective, I'm wondering whether your nutritional balance is right or whether there's a risk of you becoming malnourished. You might also find that you get bloated after eating. Again, not a major symptom in itself, but it makes me think, what's that leading to? What isn't being digested in your body properly? What are you missing out on? You might also notice that there's some brain fog or a lack of clarity. Where did I put my keys? What was I just about to say? You can't quite think of the word. And then over a period of time, this can gradually progress to dementia. So stress isn't something that is just short term and goes away. It has an impact on our body, and we need to keep an eye on managing the stress levels, managing our hormone levels, so that the aging process doesn't happen as quickly as it would otherwise take place. Again, we can find that we get irritable because we've got the high adrenaline, high cortisol levels, and we're thinking, come on, what's going on? Let's get on with it. And we can be a bit irritable if things don't happen as we want them to. You can also find then that you catch bugs more easily and your immune system gets weakened. And in the autumn and winter, a lot of people just put that down to the fact that there's a lot of bugs around, which is true. But again, from a functional medicine perspective, I'm saying, why are you catching it? Why is your immune system not strong enough on its own to help you combat any bugs that are going around? Sometimes people might be trying to get pregnant and wondering why they're not conceiving as quickly as possible. And again, it's easy to just put this down to it just hasn't worked this time, or yeah, I'm feeling a little bit stressed. But this tells me that there's something happening to the hormones in your body that we really need to be measuring. So erectile dysfunction is a very common problem when people are stressed. Equally, for both men and women, sex drive might be low. Insomnia can also be a problem when people are stressed and when the stress hormones are high, and that can happen even or especially when people are tired, which is quite frustrating. And of course we all know about muscle tension and stiffness. You get tight shoulders when you're tense and when you're stressed. One of the lesser noticed things, of course, is poor alcohol tolerance. And that's because your liver is already overloaded. So if it's got any more to process, it can't quite function properly. And so stress can come at us from all angles. It can be nutritional and dietary stress if you're eating junk food or if you're drinking too much alcohol. But it can be mental and emotional stress from the relationships that we're in, or because we're worried about a sick relative, or because we're stressed at work. Then there's environmental pollutants, in the water supply or in the air that we breathe. So our body is always fighting off things, and our liver is the main organ that deals with filtering what we want in our body and what we don't want in our body. So it's quite a good indicator. If your alcohol tolerance isn't as good as it used to be, could be that your cortisol levels are too high as well. So this is what we do to measure it. This is called an HPA stress profile. There are various ones, but this in particular measures the cortisol levels, so that's the main stress hormone that works with adrenaline. And we measure various other hormones that you may or may not have heard of. So I'll go through those in a little bit more detail. But first we've got to look at what it is that's triggering these hormones to be given off. And this is known as the stress response system. So when any sort of stress comes into our body, if it's physical or environmental or digestive, or if we're sick, if we're ill, it sends a message to the hypothalamus in the brain, which says, help, I'm in an emergency situation, let's cut out all non-essential functions and get the body healthy again get it to safety and get away from this stress. So the hypothalamus then triggers what's called ACTH, which is a thyroid hormone that tells you that the adrenal glands sit on top of your kidneys, and this message comes through to them to start producing adrenaline and cortisol. And they are your body's life support system. They're the fight, flight or freeze hormones that tell all your other systems what to do. So first of all, we need your heart to beat faster to get all the blood and the essential nutrients passing around your system. That can result in high blood pressure, to make sure that the hormones and the nutrients actually perfuse through to where they're needed. Your stomach gets the message that it's not a good time to sit and digest your food. So all the digestive enzymes decrease in your stomach, which is why if people eat at their desk and they're stressed, you're more likely to get indigestion, or you're more likely to have some sort of stomach upset, or maybe even constipation or diarrhea after eating, if you're eating in a stressful environment. So please, please, please don't eat your lunch at your desk if you're stressed. The liver also has an important function because it needs to get energy converted from glycogen to glucose, because that's the energy that's readily accessible by your body. So the liver is working really hard, which again goes back to what I was saying about it not being able to process alcohol. And of course your lungs, they need to bring in more oxygen, to pump the oxygen around the body a lot faster. So this is your stress response system, and in a healthy scenario this is exactly what's needed to get you out of danger. The problems arise, however, when you're in a drip feed situation where you're stressed at work, you're stressed in your relationships, but it's not a situation that you can have the stress and then run away from it. Okay, so this stress response system is known as the HPA axis, the hypothalamus, pituitary and adrenal glands that refers to. So when we're testing, what exactly are we testing? So everybody's heard of LDL and cholesterol. It's important to know that our body needs cholesterol. It needs good cholesterol. And cholesterol isn't just one thing. It's not one thing that's good or bad. There's different types of cholesterol. Okay, so we don't want the type of cholesterol that furs up our arteries, but we do need this LDL, because that leads on to the production of a hormone called pregnenolone. You'll recognize preg at the beginning as in pregnancy. It means mother, and so pregnenolone is the mother of all hormones. And look at this, it then produces progesterone and DHEA. You'll see why this is divided up as it is in due course. The progesterone actually produces the cortisol, which is your body's fight, flight, freeze hormone. So that's the main hormone that's affected by stress. Okay, so that's produced and affects causes all these changes in your body. Cortisol goes on to produce cortisone. Now looking at the other side, we've got DHEA, which then indirectly leads to the production of our sex hormones, okay, the 3 estrogens and testosterone. Now when I said that there's a reason the pregnenolone is divided into these two, what you'll notice is on the one hand you've got the cortisol response, which is when your body needs the cortisol and it says, I'm in danger, quick, get this body out of danger. And on the other hand, you've got all the reproduction hormones. Now, you can't do both at the same time. So it's not a good time, if you're in danger, for your body to think about conception, about sex drive, about maintaining a pregnancy, about giving birth. And what happens to the pregnenolone is as soon as the cortisol demand goes up, the pregnenolone prioritizes that. And so some of this pregnenolone goes, instead of producing DHEA, it goes to add to the production of cortisol, which has a knock-on effect, doesn't it? So cortisol production goes up, your body is in emergency response, quick, I'm in danger, I'm stressed, let's sort this stress out. And there's less production of DHEA, which means there's less production of all the male and female reproductive hormones. And that is why I tell people when they're stressed at work and they're trying to hold down a job to make money for IVF treatment, for example, it's really counterproductive because the stress is making them less likely to fall pregnant in the first place. However, it's also important to notice that the male and female sex hormones are important equally to men and women because they have to be in balance with each other. So for anyone who's interested in the detail of this test and what's being tested, we look at several different hormones. Cortisol, of course, is the main stress hormone, so we've got to measure the cortisol levels. And we measure something called the cortisol awakening response, because when you wake up in the morning, your cortisol levels should be high and you should feel ready to wake up, refreshed from the night, and then over the next hour and a half, your cortisol levels will increase. So as you have breakfast, you have a shower, then you feel lively and ready to face the day. As those cortisol levels increase throughout the day, so your melatonin levels should decrease throughout the day. And you'll see looking down there that melatonin is also tested here because we want to look at the balance between the two. When one is high, the other should be low, and that governs our sleep-wake cycle. Are we awake enough to be productive? Are we sleeping deeply enough to replenish our body? Then, as I've already described, the DHEA and the 3 types of estrogen are very important, not just for reproduction actually, but also for things like your bone density, for managing the distribution of body fat, and for your heart and your skin and your brain. Okay, so they're all equally important for men and women, even though the estrogens are typically associated with women. Likewise, the progesterone and the testosterone are important for women and men because it balances the estrogens. And as we know, many of the serious illnesses are caused by an imbalance in estrogen. And so progesterone is important. In the women, it prepares the body for conception, but in a man, it's the precursor to testosterone, which is the main male sex hormone. And so the testosterone is, that's a steroidal hormone as well, and it develops all the tissues for the testes and the prostate. It builds muscle mass, it regulates the sex drive and fat distribution, stimulates red blood cell growth, sperm cells, bone mass and body hair. So everything that we associate with looking masculine, that's down to the testosterone. But it is important for women as well because it helps women with growth and the maintenance of the reproductive tissue as well, and with our bone mass and with women's sex drive. Now, the other thing that's tested here is called secretory IgA, and it's secretory immunoglobulin A, if you need to know, but basically it's an antibody that lies on the surface of all the mucous membranes around your body. So it's a real physical barrier against any pathogens that can get into the body through the mouth or through the nose, the lungs, or through eating it. So anywhere that the mucosal membranes there, and some things should be digested by the body and some things can get in that shouldn't be. So the secretory IgA is a really good way of measuring what is getting through and what's not. So in the early stages of, for example, a gastrointestinal problem, if you've eaten something that you shouldn't, SIgA levels will increase because it's fighting off the infection, or it's fighting off the parasite, or it's telling our body to get rid of whatever shouldn't be there. But once you've had digestive problems for a long period of time, the energy behind the secretory IgA decreases, and so you'll find that the secretory IgA goes low. There's less of a defense, there's less defense in the mucosal barrier, and so you can end up with things like leaky gut syndrome or all sorts of other digestive problems, IBS, ulcerative colitis, whatever it may be. And so to understand the benefits of the secretory IgA, let's look at the mucosal membranes. So first of all, of course, we've got the lining of the mouth. So if you get mouth sores, then that would indicate that barrier, that secretory IgA barrier has broken down. In the lungs, any problems there could lead to bronchitis. In the stomach, you might get heartburn, so that's very, very common. Many people are prescribed medication by their doctor for heartburn, but actually it could be that they just need to reduce their stress levels to make it go away. The large and small intestines can lead to problems like IBS and ulcerative colitis, and typically symptoms vary when you've got a problem with secretory IgA, because sometimes your stress levels will be high, sometimes it'll be low, so sometimes your hormones are coping better than others, but typically there will be a progression where things get worse. Also, of course, your urinary tract is mucosal membrane, so you might find that you start getting recurrent UTIs if that barrier has broken down, and likewise with the genital tract, you'll start getting sores along there. So this is all good and well, talking about all these things that can go wrong with stress, but actually many people are facing stressful situations that they can't do anything about. So the obvious question is, am I a lost cause? If you're caring for a sick relative, that stress isn't going to go away. Or if you're in a stressful work environment, it's not always viable to just walk into work and tell your boss where to stuff the job. People have financial worries. Again, they don't go away overnight, and they are a huge trigger for people having low sex drive, poor sleep patterns, poor digestive problems. And so people often feel trapped in their current situation. They can't get away from the stress. So what can be done? It's all good and well measuring the effects of the stress on the body and finding that out. But if you've got long-term stress that you can't get away from, what can you do? Why do you need to know what the level of stress is in your body at the moment? Well, my perspective as a practitioner of Chinese medicine and functional medicine testing is that I want to create resilience in your body. Whilst you may not be able to get rid of the primary cause of the stress, you can get rid of other causes of stress. So the first thing is to have the lab tests done to see whether you're at stage 1, 2 or 3 of the stress. So is it quite mild and can be just regulated by a couple of changes in habit and diet? Or is it more severe and you've got long-term damage to your brain function, for example, from the high cortisol levels, or to the neurotransmitters because of high cortisol levels? So there are 3 different stages that we measure for the stress levels in your body. One of the things that we can do right from the start is looking at giving you an anti-inflammatory diet. So one that reduces the oxidative stress in your body, because that will be on the increase when there's high cortisol, and that increases the aging process in the body. So we definitely need an anti-inflammatory diet. You can take herbal remedies to reduce stress. There's a group of herbs called adaptogenic herbs, which help your body to adapt to changing situations and changing circumstances. So that reduces the stress level by helping your body to cope better, to adapt faster, no matter what gets thrown at it. I would also recommend regular detoxification of your system. So for 10 days every month, go really easy on your digestive system by cutting out things like caffeine and alcohol and fatty foods and processed foods. So at Barefoot Medicine, I have a 4-month detox program that I do with people. So I detoxify my system for 10 days every month. I eat really clean, really pure food. I do that 10 days a month for 4 months. And during that time, I take supplements of fruit and vegetables and berries in a capsule. It's completely natural. It's just dehydrated fruit, veg and berries. And that means I get the goodness from the fruit and veg, but it's bioavailable. So I'm not taxing my system to get the goodness out of it. It's not like having a great big Sunday dinner, for example, and saying, well, this is great. I've got protein and I've got all sorts of vitamins and minerals from my vegetables. Because when you're stressed and when you're tired, your digestive system can't break it down. No matter how good and healthy your food is, you can have a filet steak, but if the stress levels are so high that it has weakened your GI tract and your digestive system, you're not going to get the goodness from the food that you're eating. So for that reason, 10 days a month, I have a really gentle diet that's as pure and as natural as possible. And throughout those 4 months, I take supplements of encapsulated fruit, vegetables and berries, in addition to having my regular healthy meals. So yes, of course, I still have my Sunday dinner. I love it. But I do want to make sure that the nutrition is accessible by my body. And then the other thing that can help, of course, is acupuncture. That can help both with your metabolic system, so it can help with your digestion if you find that you're already having IBS or constipation problems, or if you get bloated after eating, or if your energy levels are low. Acupuncture is fantastic for all of that, but it is also excellent for mental and emotional stress, whether it is immediate, that you're in a stressful situation now, or whether you've had stressful situations to deal with, such as divorce or bereavement or major illness. So remember, acupuncture can help the mind and the body, and I would argue the spirit as well, but I guess we can't measure that. And then finally, meditation is something that I would recommend to everybody. There's a fantastic app called Insight Timer, which is free of charge, so anybody with a smartphone or an iPad can download Insight Timer and have access to thousands of different meditations free of charge. Please, please, please set aside 10 minutes a day to meditate. It could be when you wake up in the morning to set yourself up for the day, or it could be at the end of the day to help you sleep. But it is vitally important. It is not just an indulgence. It's something that can reset your body and reduce your cortisol levels. So finally, all that remains for me to say is thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this. My name is Simone Buna and I'm the owner of Barefoot Medicine. So if you have any questions about it, or if you would like to go ahead and order the test, you can contact me, or you can book online at barefootmedicine.co.uk. Thank you again for your time.